Hello again, FLOSSTUBE. It's Brittany. It's been about a week since I put up my first FLOSSTUBE video, and I thought it was about time to put up my second one. We had a lot of snow here this week, and we ended up actually having a show canceled, so I was able to get in a lot of stitching time. And the package that I mentioned last week came with the fabric for a new project, so I have a new start to show you. Unfortunately, because I was stitching on that means that two of my projects I showed last week do not have any progress, but the other two have quite a bit of progress. So I think I did all right. I'm also going to be showing you my finishes in this video as well, so it may be a little bit longer than the other one. We'll see how quickly I get through everything. Let's go ahead and get started with my WIPS. I will show you my progress. This first one is the mystery WIP. Some of you may be able to start to guess who this is. We'll see. So I finished the hat that I was doing last time, and I filled in almost the entire silhouette. This is a very famous animal on the internet. You may be able to guess who he is, or she, I guess I should say, in real life. And once I get the whole thing done, I'll tell you the twist I kind of put on this pattern, or on this character, as a birthday gift for one of my castmates. I think it's coming along really well. The contrast between all of the tan colors is not quite maybe what I would have liked, but I think it'll do. But yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's coming along pretty well. Secondly, my new start, and kind of a mini finish too, I guess, is, as so many others on FLOSSTUBE are doing, I started the Frosted Pumpkin Stitcheries Storytime Sampler. That's the fabric I was waiting for last week. This was, my birthday was actually on the 16th of January, so I decided that this project was going to be one of my birthday presents with some of the money that I received. And I've had a good time with it so far. It's my first time using Weeks Dye Works, and my first time using Lugana fabric, and I can't tell if I like it or not yet. Part of me does, but I've also had a lot of trouble. Frogging is more difficult, I've found, and I don't know if that's just because I'm putting my needle in the fibers instead of in the holes, or what exactly is going on. But I finished January. You can see I also have a couple other frames on there. It's because I started from the middle and was a little nervous about starting on the edge, so I went ahead and stitched up the two frames so I could get up to January's frame. I think the Alice in Wonderland block is very cute. I'm excited to start on February's block, but since I have until the end of February for that, and I have to have this birthday present done before then, I'm going to focus on getting the birthday present done. The only thing I forgot to do on this was her little shoe, but I figure I can pick that up later when I pull the project back out. I think it's coming along. This fabric is still from Picture This Plus, but I ended up picking the Dawn fabric. I don't know, I just wanted to be a little different and instead of the Storm, and I think it'll work well. We'll see as I stitch along. It's got to work well now. I'm not pulling this all out. So those are my two WIPs that I made progress on this past week, and it's been a lot of fun. The stitches on this sampler are kind of tiny. The frames are beautiful, but I've made a lot of mistakes so far, and I've had to pull stuff out. My castmates in my dressing room have heard many a sigh of frustration as I realize that I've counted wrong or skipped a line or whatever I've done. I guess I'll move on to my finishes now. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I guess, is a lot of my finishes are finished projects, and they have been gifts in the past, so I don't have very many of them actually with me. And since the lighting is not great in here anyway, I will probably just overlay pictures while I'm talking about them so you can see what I'm talking about. My very first finish of all was a pattern. I'm so embarrassed to say that I started in middle school. I know a lot of you are probably looking at me thinking, middle school, that can't have been too long ago, but yes, it was. This project was finished about 10 or 11 years after it was started, And it was one of those that I started, and I think it was a little overambitious for my middle school days, and I kept pulling it out, doing some stitches, putting it back in, and not touching it for years, I'm sure. But I was in a show, and one of my other cast members was cross-stitching, and I thought, you know, that looks like a lot of fun. I have that old cross-stitch that is just sitting in a box at home. I'll see if I can get my mom to ship it to me. So she shipped it to me, and I started working on it during the show, and it was called Water Dragon by Jan Lynn. Hopefully you will be seeing a picture of it now. If not, I will get a picture of it at the end. This pattern was really fun. I was very into dragons. I still very much like fantasy and dragons, so that's why I picked it out. My mom was the one who kind of encouraged me to pick up a cross-stitch kit, and she was the one who showed me how to start it and about doing, I did this a quarter first and did it color by color, and that's kind of how I've been doing it ever since after she taught me that way. I think it turned out pretty well. There's, of course, a couple of counting errors, but I'm not going to say where they are, and I'm pretty certain that you will not be able to tell where they are, so it'll just be a secret. I framed that, and it's on my wall in my apartment in New York right now, so I don't have it with me, but it means a lot to me because it is my first, and it turned out pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. I believe my second finish was a wedding gift for a friend of mine, well, two friends of mine who ended up getting married last May. I picked the pattern by Imaginating called All Because. I thought it wasn't too old-fashioned looking, but was still nice enough, and I started it probably about March that year and finished it before the wedding and got it shipped out to them and framed, and hopefully there will be a picture of it as well. Not too much to say, except it was a lot of backstitching. That whole border was a lot of backstitching, but I think it turned out pretty well again. The frame is a bit too small looking back on it. I should have matted it, but I was being a little impatient and wanted to get it sent off. So, oh well. They like it just the same. It's on their apartment wall in New York as well. The third finish that I've had is a pattern called, it was a kit by Design Works, Like My Hope Owl. I think it's probably from the same line, called Give Thanks. This one I finished up as a birthday present for my mother. Her birthday's in June, and I gave it to her June of last year, and I ended up turning it into a pillow. That fabric that you see around the border, the kind of plaid fabric, is actually pretty special because it was used in my first off-Broadway show. And it was used as a tablecloth at the end of the show. The producer said, I don't have the space to store all this, so take what you want. And I took that fabric because I thought, surely I'll find some use for it. And so that makes it pretty special for my mom. It turned out the colors matched pretty well. The piping around the edge of the pillow was a little rough. And if you were to see the back of the pillow, it doesn't exactly fit, but I think it turned out okay. My fourth finish is another kit. This kit I actually got because it looked really small and I thought it would be easy, but it turned out to be rather difficult. It's by Bucilla or Bucilla or Buccia or I don't know, whatever you want to say. But it's called Afternoon Nap. I love cats, so I picked this up. It was only like $1 or $5 at Walmart, and I thought, oh, this will be a nice one to finish up after my dragon. And I started it not long after I finished the water dragon, and it ended up taking me about a year to finish picking it up and putting it back and doing other crafts in between, but I think it turned out rather sweet. It was my first time doing a whole bunch of confetti. I had not had to deal with that before, and I didn't know it was called confetti, but as soon as I heard that term, I knew exactly what it was referencing. My favorite part, I think, about this pattern is all of the, are they called straight stitches or long stitches or something, but the stitches that make the cat look really fuzzy and make the whiskers really stand out. I think that's my favorite part of the pattern. My fifth finish, I guess you would call it, is a freebie pattern by Brooks Books. It was one of her Advent animals. I had an idea when I was home last month for Christmas, I guess 2 months ago now, to do gift tags for my family with some of her Advent animals. However, I highly underestimated the amount of time that it would take me to stitch them. So I only got the one done. It was for my dad. It's Peter Polar Bear. I finished him into a Christmas ornament and gave him to my dad for Christmas, and he was on our tree. And now he's packed away with all the other Christmas ornaments. I think he turned out very cute. I still think that I will continue stitching Brooke's Advent animals because they are so darn cute. And my last finish and my first finish of 2015 was a birthday gift for my birthday twin. We were born the same day, the same year, and have celebrated together in person ever since we met, which has now been about 7 or 8 years, which is really cool. He flew out here to see my show because we opened the show on my birthday, and I stitched this for him as a present. He is a big fan of the Pokemon franchise, and his favorite Pokemon in particular is Vaporeon. And so I stitched him up a Vaporeon based on, I believe this is the first generation sprite in the game. Now, if you're not familiar with Pokemon, you can have a core team of these pocket monsters. They're all different elements in all different shapes and based on different kinds of animals and in real life, and some are completely made up. It's really quite fun. He was quite excited about it, and I think he really appreciated it. And I even told him to pick out 5 more Pokemon. In the games, you have a core team of 6 Pokemon, so he's going to pick out 5 more, and I'm going to do kind of his dream team of Pokemon, so he can hang them up on his wall eventually when he has a room that he can do that. He's also an actor, so he is also traveling around much like I am. It's hard when you're a stitcher because you want to display and hang all of your work so proudly, but I don't have a real place, I guess, to do that yet. And so that's why I make a lot of gifts, is so that other people can keep them and appreciate them. Those are my finishes. I don't have quite as many as some of you other floss tubers do, but I've only been stitching seriously for about 1.5 years now. Speaking of how long I've been stitching, I thought I would take this opportunity to do a couple of the tags that I've seen floating around. And that segue was to go into Mrs. Bakergirl's tag because her first question is, how long have you been stitching? I have been stitching seriously, as I said, for about 1.5 years. I picked up my water dragon again in fall of 2013, and since then have been stitching fairly consistently. I started water dragon, it's got to be 11, 12, maybe even 13 years ago at this point. I don't remember exactly what point of middle school that I started stitching it, but I was not cross-stitching between those times, really. I would pick it up and put a few stitches in, but I don't think that counts. Second question is, what is your favorite thing, item, tool that you have purchased for cross-stitch use? I don't really have anything too special. Again, as a traveling actress, I don't have the space to buy anything large like a lap frame or a light or anything. But since finding FLOSSTUBE, I learned about Q-snaps, and I do love my Q-snap. I believe it works a lot better. It doesn't cause quite the crease that my old pressure hoop did. And when I have thick fabric like this even weave, it doesn't pop out quite so easily, which I do appreciate as well. Her third question was, if you could do a Disney cross-stitch, which one would you want to do? I really, really like Peter Pan. That story means a lot to me. As an actor, I feel like it kind of describes my life. I don't really have to grow up. I'm playing pretend on stage for a living, which is pretty cool. And I think that kind of relates to how Peter Pan doesn't grow up. And I also got to play Peter in the musical version of the story a couple years ago, and it was one of my most favorite experiences. And so Peter Pan is pretty special to me. I also really like Merida from Brave, and there's a particular cross-stitch kit/pattern in an Etsy store run by or called the Stitching Girl, and it's kind of a stained glass round motif, and Merida is in the middle with a bunch of the other characters kind of in the background. And I really like that and eventually would love to stitch that as well. Her last question, Mrs. Bakergirl's last question, was, what is your favorite cross-stitch book or magazine? Unfortunately, I don't have any cross-stitch books or magazines, so I don't have a favorite. Just, I've been using standalone patterns and kits, and I haven't had the opportunity to, or desire at this point, to buy a book or magazine yet. Although you guys have some wonderful books and magazines with some great patterns in them. So maybe someday I will. I'm going to also move on to Stitching Panda's tag. She had some fun questions in them. Her first question is, what storybook, book, fantasy, character do you relate with most and why? Again, I'll throw Peter out there. I just really love, he's kind of a jerk at times, but just his view on life and having fun and being in the moment, living in the moment, and being, keeping the child aspect of yourself alive, I think is pretty special. And I also, Stitching Panda mentioned her, but Anne of Green Gables is one of my other book characters that I relate to as well. As an actress, I have a penchant for the dramatic, and both her and Peter, oddly enough, at least the Disney Peter and some other adaptations, they're both redheads. I guess I will go ahead and say I have, I relate to other redheads. I can't help it. I had quite a temper when I was little, very much like Anne does, Anne Shirley does, and I just love her outlook on life. She is, when she feels something, she feels it to the highest degree, whether she is in the depths of despair or she is reveling in the beautiful day that she finds around her. And I love her affinity for the world's and nature's gifts, and I just think that she's wonderful. I love all of her sayings. I love just who she is. That's another part that I would love, love, love to play eventually. I look young enough. I think I could. So who knows? Maybe I'll get to play her one day. I would absolutely adore it. Do I have any cross-stitch patterns or purchases relating to Anne or Peter? No, not really. As Stitching Panda said, there's not much out there as far as Anne of Green Gables things go, and Peter Pan, there is more, just nothing that I've been wanting to tackle right now. They're all fairly large patterns that I've seen. I would love, and I've dreamed about in the future, maybe creating my own patterns in regards to both of those characters in maybe a sampler kind of form with quotes from both of the novels. But, that's just a dream. We'll see if it happens. Her second question is, what is the oddest place that you've ever cross-stitched? And I would say that the strangest place I've ever been cross-stitching is on the subway in New York. Some of my commutes when I'm living there can be up to an hour long. So I bring my stitching, and provided I have a space to sit and a space to move my arms, that I'm not disturbing anyone, I will pull my cross-stitch out. I have actually a kind of a funny story about stitching on the subway. Not in the train, but on the subway platform. I was stitching on afternoon nap. I had it in one hand and was stitching, and I don't know exactly where I was holding the pattern. It could have been under an arm. It could have been held by the same hand that I was holding the hoop. I'm not sure, and I still to this day am not sure how it happened, but I dropped the pattern. And granted, this was the only copy of the pattern I had. And it floated through the air, as paper is wont to do, and headed directly towards the tracks. I stopped breathing. The world turned into slow motion, and I watched it very carefully and very luckily land right on the edge of the yellow strip before falling into the tracks. I let out a sigh of relief. This woman next to me turned to me and said, "That was close. And I just laughed and looked at her and said, yes, yes it was. Bent down to scoop the pattern up and put it away for the rest of the day, maybe even the rest of the month. I don't know. I got a little shy about working on my cross stitch on the subway after that. It was a rather close call. And I was very lucky that it did not fall onto those tracks, because if it had, there would be no way for me to get it back. Whew, I was very lucky. Still makes me a little nervous thinking about it. Her Panda's last, well, I guess I should call her Stitching Panda because she has her own panda. Stitching Panda's last question is, what is your most favorite pattern? And I don't really have one. Is that sad to say? What does that say about my choice and what I've chosen to stitch? I don't know. I know she has the Kingfisher pattern that really speaks to her, and I have to say I don't think that I have anything that is that special to me or that means that much to me. I like all the patterns that I do. Certainly I wouldn't stitch a pattern I didn't like, but I have not found that pattern yet that I absolutely adore. But maybe that will make the search for it more special, because when I find it, I will know. I believe that is all I wanted to get done for this video, and looking and, well, guessing what the time is probably going to be, it's probably a good thing. So I will take this moment at the end of my video to say thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who has welcomed me and left comments on my video. I had watched so many FLOSSTUBE videos that have said in the past what a welcoming and warm community that this is, on the internet no less, which can be full of so much negativity, and I am so happy to report back to all of you that that is still true, and I just appreciate all of the kind thoughts and the compliments I've received, and the likes and the views, and even those of you that have subscribed already and have faith in me that I will make more videos. It just really means a lot, and I'm excited to get to know more of you, and to, you know, maybe put some kind of little root out here in the FLOSSTUBE community. We'll see. It will be my loss if I do not continue, because all of you so far have just been so kind and so nice. Saying that, I want to wish everyone who's watching a very happy week or month or however long it is until I see you next. And I hope that you all get some very productive stitching time, some very relaxing stitching time in, and that those frogs stay away. I will hopefully talk to you guys sometime soon in the future. Bye!